right, so I'm a fan of the original Pete's Dragon, and I know you had it on loop as well. So what do you think this version of it brings, and why were you convinced to be part of it?
Well, I mean, when I first heard about it, it wasn't like, oh, there's this role. I just heard Pete's Dragon was happening, and I had to I was very like sleuth-like. Like I was like, I need to find out what they're doing. And when I read it, I mean, I realized that very quickly, you know, what people will see as well when they see it is it's a very different film. It's not like a straight up adaptation of the 1977 Pete's Dragon. But the thing that I was obsessed with when I watched Pete's Dragon as a kid, maybe you felt the same, was it was one of the first times when I saw live action with animation. Yeah. So it's like, you know, it's like a real kid and then also a dragon. And so so that is, I can promise that happens in this as well. It's a real boy and a real dragon.
Yeah. So, I mean, given that you connected to this material as a kid and the idea of the fantasy of having a friend with special powers and all that sort of stuff, how was taking a role that she's like the no-nonsense, practical, it's like being...
Well, I don't relate to that.
It's, like, it's like being the boring parent. It's like the parent who has to lay down the rules.
Right.
So.
I mean, it was kind of crazy for me to watch the movie because as a kid, and even I'm realizing now as an adult, I always identified with the central character who's primarily in Disney films, a young person. And watching the movie, I was like, I'm the grown-up. Like, I'm the mom figure.
It just hit you now?
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm 35. but I mean, it was really, like, while we were making it, I kept trying to sort of remind myself of that, like, there's sort of this legacy of those kinds of characters. You know, there's these central characters that, you know, it's the coming of age story of a little boy, kind of find, you know, and this movie is about what it takes for him to find a family, and then the character that I play is sort of represents stability, you know, and represents family, and I try to not put too much into it because, you know, you don't want to be the grown-up in the children's film that's like wah wah wah, you know, and everyone's like, come on, back to the dragon. So, you know, it was very different for me in that way.
So, but one of the things, when I told my kids who I was talking to today, it's like, this is the second movie she makes where she has to deal with something that's not real. So they wanted, my kids, I have 10-year-old twins, they wanted me to ask you about the make-believe and dealing with that aspect when you're shooting this sort of movies.
I mean, it's really interesting because I feel like it's getting, like the technology in these films are getting better and better, not just in what you ultimately see at the end of the day when you're watching the movie, but also in the making of it. So for instance, there was, and I don't know if this is really advanced technology, but there was a big giant blown up version of Elliot on set, who's really, really, really large, like 20 feet high. And so that made a difference for us, you know, like actually looking up and seeing something big and green. And then also the director, David Lowery, had everything really planned out in advance, and so we were able to see kind of like a sort of crude animation of what we were acting opposite, like what the performance was going to be. And we also, even way before we started shooting, we had a screening at Weta, the folks that who created Elliot in New Zealand, visual effects folks, and they kind of introduced us to Elliot, and it was amazing because we were, you know, I was there with the kids, and we were seeing what his personality was like, and you know, sort of like who this character is,
All right, so something that I wanted to ask you, since you've been in the business, not only acting, but before you were a PA in Apollo 13 and all this sort of stuff. For me, I find the magic of making movies still fascinates me, even as an adult. So I wonder, because you've been in it for so long, are you still do you get that when you walk on a set and the sort of the magic that it is making a movie, or do you still appreciate that?
Yes, very much so. I mean, I'm someone who, like, I'm pretty much like in a state of awe always, just in life. Like, I came to this hotel and
That's
I'm like,
awesome.
Yeah, I mean, no, totally. And I think that, I mean, what you said, like the magic of the movie is it's so real because it's not just that kind of magical experience of being in a dark theater and being transported on a journey that you would never in your wildest dreams be able to imagine. You know, that experience, like, you know, watching a boy with a dragon, that's a magical experience. But for me, the magic that happens on set is, I mean, it really does feel like magic. I mean, it's I always would say, like, it's like the most talented group of people assembled who are able to create anything at a moment's notice, and they're all told to play together. And the director's job is just to kind of like be like this, like to
Shape
keep it
it
together. And I mean, it is as a kid, as an adult, it is unbelievably inspiring to be in a group like that and to watch everyone kind of do stuff that you had no idea. You're like, oh, now a dragon's breathing fire on set. You know, I mean, it's like they create all of this, and it's really impressive.
So I know that you tackled Mr. Redford. Once that you got that out of the way,
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
is he as a scene partner besides being able to take a hit?
I mean, I know. He's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's I think that, I mean, it's sort of this crazy thing, like when you, like Robert Redford, someone that I really look up to, and I think a lot of people look up to him. I think most people look up to Robert Redford, and so just getting the chance to work with him and chill with him, like just to talk with him, I'm like, oh, he's a real person. But I mean, it's absurd to me. It's absurd that I think that, but I think there's something so iconic about who the role that he's played in the history of movies in general. I mean, he's not just one of our greatest actors, but he's also an exceptional filmmaker and producer and entertainment entrepreneur. I mean, he's completely changed the course of of history in terms of movie making and entertainment.
All right, so I know that you've directed shorts, but when are we going to get a feature directed by Bryce Dallas Howard?
I don't know.
When is that happening?
Yeah, I at some point, hopefully. That's definitely a goal of mine.
Do you think you'll go character-based, or do you think you'll ever go, now that you've sort of experienced the big scope, big effects, what do you think you'll tackle first?
Well, I guess I don't really think about it in terms of the scope. I really love, I'm very drawn to big ideas, and I'm very drawn to kind of the spectacle of movie making, but it's sort of, you can't really, it's like, this is such a romanticized sort of answer to your question, but like you don't know who you're going to fall in love with. Like, you don't know like what is going to
connect,
what's going to really grab you when you're reading something.